Well, good morning. Thank you for coming. Thanks to Sheriff Wayne Ivey for hosting us here. It's always great to be in Brevard County. We're also pleased to be joined by Nikki Jones, who is an angel wife, who's going to tell her story, and she has helped us on some of these issues in the past relating to illegal immigration. And then Dave Kerner, Executive Director, Florida Highway Safety Motor Vehicles, also oversees Florida Highway Patrol. So we have a charge to keep, and that is to end the illegal immigration crisis in this country once and for all. We have worked for 4 years to fight against Biden's open border policies, lax enforcement. We used every tool at our disposal to protect the people of Florida. We've banned sanctuary cities, instituted evverify. We have other things protecting against healthcare. All these things that we've done have been helpful, but when you have a president who wasn't willing to enforce the law, it just wasn't going to be something that was going to be enough. And so the American people spoke in November. President Trump ran. His promise was the largest deportation program in the history of the United States of America. And so that needs to get done, right? You do not have enough federal resources to be able to fulfill that mandate. The only way you can do it is if you have state and locals actively cooperating with these agencies to be able to effectuate interior enforcement of immigration laws and additional deportations of illegal aliens. And so we knew that there was going to be a series of executive orders issued. A couple weeks ago, I called a special session of the legislature to deal with the illegal immigration crisis. The leaders of the House and Senate said that it was not urgent and it was premature and it could wait a few months. That didn't go over well with voters because they want action now. We have a sense of urgency to get it done now. Then they said it was a stunt to do it, and then they had all these, and then so finally they came in, and even though we had proposals that would actually work, they decided to do a bill that not only won't work, that actually is weaker than what we have today. And I'll tell you why that's the case. Now, they named it the Trump Act because they think if they put his name on it, people will think. Voters here are looking at the details on this because they want to solve the problem. They know these politicians have been giving lip service to voters for years. Then when they have an opportunity to do something, they do half-baked measures and don't get the job done. We don't have time for weakness. We don't have time for half-baked measures. We've got to be strong. We've got to lead the way when it comes to immigration enforcement. And so we have a lot of different issues that are kind of out in the ether. Everything I've proposed is stronger than what the legislature has done. And I don't have any pride of ownership. I don't need any credit. I hope that they will do strong policies. Maybe they can do stronger than ours. They can have 100% of the credit. But the reality is we're not going to accept weak policies. So what do we need to do? Yeah. First, we need to end catch and release of illegal aliens. So we have a proposal to make sure that there's a presumption if an illegal alien's arrested and brought before a judge on charges that they're detained. And if they're detained without bail, then you can contact immigration and immigration can pick them up and then they can deport them from the country. The bill that the legislature passed doesn't provide a presumption. The judges will be able to release them without any type of presumption or detention. That is not keeping the people of this state safe. We need to detain and deport, not catch and release. Now, they have said, well, they want the locals involved at the jails. And there was a debate about, is there going to be any enforcement of immigration law? And basically the people running the bill said, well, in jails, if you have an illegal in jail, you can tell ICE if there's a detainer. Obviously, you should do that. That's like the bare minimum. But even that, so say we have someone coming out of our prison system or a local jail, they will tell ICE under their bill, but if ICE doesn't come get them, they just release them. We don't do that. We think that you have to give them the ability to transport the illegal to ICE if ICE doesn't come to get it. Why would we just release them back onto the street? It doesn't make any sense, and so we're not going to do that. Now, we have been doing a lot of enforcement already. We obviously was tough with Biden, but just since President Trump took office, We've got highway patrol. We just did a bust with FDLE down in South Florida. Over 20 Chinese illegals busted. FDLE just did something with Homeland Security, Special Investigative, Tallahassee, busting a bunch of illegals. And so we've got our agencies out there actively working, and we'll continue to do that. Now, what the legislature did, they passed a bill that would end any of what I've been doing to help protect Florida. They would get rid of all of that. Everything Dave Kerner has been doing with Highway Patrol, FDLE, any of our other assets, they terminate that. And they don't let us go that. And they transfer responsibility for immigration enforcement away from the governor to the Commissioner of Agriculture. What? First of all, they don't have the resources necessary to do this. Now they're saying they're going to give a lot of money, create a new bureaucracy. It's not going to work. Obviously, the Commissioner of Agriculture, and given how people have come and worked illegally in that industry, is like the fox guarding the hen house. That's not where immigration enforcement has typically gone. So it's a huge sign. And so people are like, well, why would you give it to the Agriculture Commissioner? We already have agencies in place working under the governor's office. And, oh, by the way, even our most fiercest critics acknowledge we handle crises and emergencies very well here in Florida. We've got a great apparatus. We've got great people. We make good decisions. We get the job done for people. So if you're really serious about immigration enforcement, man, you would want to empower us to do the job. But instead, they're taking it away. So people say, well, why would you do that? How is that going to help increase deportations? The answer is it's not going to. They know it's not going to. This is by design. They want to neuter the interior enforcement that we're already doing under state government working in concert with these federal agencies. So their bill would result in fewer deportations than we're doing right now in the state of Florida. There's no question about that because they're neutering state ability to help. So even if like Wayne wanted to do something under the bill, at Brevard Sheriff, he's not allowed to interact with any federal agencies unless he gets the approval of the Commissioner of Agriculture. How ridiculous is that? Why the hell would you put that in? They're putting it in because they want to put the kibosh on this. So here's where I think the fix is in, because we're either going to have the largest deportation program in history, and you need the locals and states to help with that, otherwise it's not going to happen, or you're not. The bill the legislature did, it mentions agriculture over 30 times. You know how many times it mentions the word deport? 0 times. Because that's not what they want. They don't want any interior enforcement outside somebody in a jail that can be turned over. If we saw the Chinese illegals, we busted them yesterday working with the local police down there in South Florida. These guys, Dave Kerner's guys, they busted people. We need to do that. Otherwise, you're never going to solve this problem. And so under their bill, the massive numbers of illegals in Florida will remain. You are not going to see a meaningful dent in that because it'll basically be whatever the federal government's limited to. They have limited assets. If you're not having state and local supplement, you are really, really missing the boat. So that's just the reality. And it's also, President Trump declared a national emergency on immigration when he became governor, or when he became president. I have an emergency for the state of Florida. We've used it for maritime operations to stop boats coming from Haiti and the Bahamas and Cuba with illegal aliens. We're using it with Highway Patrol to be able to protect people. The legislation they did, just as the president is declaring this to be a national emergency, they terminate Florida's emergency on illegal immigration. And so that hamstrings our ability to actually protect the public even more. Is there anybody that voted for that? How many of these guys ran and asked for your vote and said they were going to kneecap the state's ability to combat illegal immigration? Not one of them did that. And yet that's what they voted on yesterday. Gangs. We have provisions that are really strong on these transnational gangs, like these Venezuelan gangs. They initially had nothing in their proposal on gangs. They put some stuff in, but still not nearly enough in terms of what we're doing. We also need to address, because yes, go after the cartels with the foreign terrorist organization designation, 100% I'm for it. Build the wall, do the border fortification, 100% I'm for it. But we also have to address the incentives that people have to come illegally. And if you eliminate the incentives, well, then that's going to help a lot of the problem right then and there. So what's one of the main incentives that brings people here to the United States and to Florida illegally? Employment. They can work the same job here in the United States and make more money, and then they send money back to their home country to people there in these remittances. So we have one, we did do evverify in Florida for private businesses. 25 employees are up. The legislature, I think, did that by design. They didn't want to go all the way, but still, it has helped. We want to strengthen evverify in Florida. They actually weaken what we already have with evverify. So there'll be even more of an incentive to come. It'll be easier to get employment. We also deal with this issue of the remittances. So if you want to send a wire transfer, we want to provide requirement that you have like an e-verify on that you prove that you're here lawfully. And if you can't prove you have a right to be here, then you shouldn't be able to send remittances back if it's based on illegal labor. They did not include anything on dealing with the remittances, and I think the reason is because they don't want to eliminate the magnets. I think it's a deliberate policy choice. They don't want to eliminate the magnets, because if you eliminate the remittances, then fewer people would want to come here and work, and I think they're trying to service some of the demand for the illegal foreign labor. So it's a huge problem. They never dealt with any of that. Voting. You do not have to certify right now that you are a U.S. citizen. Even though you have to be a citizen to vote in Florida, you actually don't have to do that under penalty of perjury. We want to make sure that every voter has to say that you are a U.S. citizen and you're eligible to vote. You check that box and you're not a citizen, then we're going to hold you accountable with enhanced penalties. And it should be at the stage of registration. We shouldn't have to wait for an illegal alien to actually vote before you can prosecute them to the fullest extent of the law, because then the vote's already counted at that point. So dealing with this at the front end, we think is really important. They did not add any teeth, and we need that to happen. So very, very weak in terms of what they did on the voting. The linchpin of all this, though, is there's a bunch of federal programs and authorities where states and locals can work in concert with the federal government to enforce immigration laws. Some of the stuff's relatively narrow, some of the stuff's really broad. Some of the executive orders that some of the executive orders that came out of the administration actually allows state and local law enforcement to be deputized to be able to exercise the authority of an immigration officer. So if you think about that, right now, for example, we've got boats in Florida. Now, President Trump's, he has beefed up the Coast Guard, but and Biden wouldn't do that, so that's helped. But we still have our boats because we've intercepted a lot. If you intercept them on the sea, you can give them to Coast Guard, they take them back. If they make it to the shore, then all of a sudden our guys can't really do anything. You got to turn them over. They will be deputized. They'll be able to make the same decisions that a Border Patrol or ICE agent will. And then we can have our guys just take them back to Haiti or Bahamas or wherever they're coming from, right on the spot. That is really significant. You will be able to empower locals to exercise immigration. So, for example, it's like Wayne could train, the federal government will train some of Wayne's deputies, right? And so if one of his deputies is responding to a call like an apartment complex, like domestic violence, some things that are frequent, but then you notice that there's, Tres de Agua, Venezuelan gang members down the hall, well, then you'll be empowered to go and take care of those guys and bring them in for immigration detention. So the ability to increase enforcement and increase the number of deportations, if you have state and locals having to be a part of these programs, it goes up dramatically. That's how you fulfill the mandate. That's how you have record numbers of deported illegal aliens to be able to have that. And think about 90% of interactions, 95% are going to be state and local. It is not going to be federal agents. They just have limited bandwidth and they have limited number. And even I think Congress will probably provide some more authority, I think Congress will probably do some other stuff, but that's going to take time to build up. We don't have time. We've got 4 years to be able to get this done. And so we've got to start right now, and the state and locals need to be a part of this. Obviously, we're not a sanctuary jurisdiction, although their bill makes us a de facto sanctuary state because you're taking power away from the state government to be able to actively combat illegal immigration. But as of now, we're not. And so you can't sabotage, but we need to have cooperation, active cooperation, and you need enforcement, because if you have some local police chief that doesn't believe in what the president's doing and wants to frustrate it or doesn't want to offer assistance, then you need to be able to hold them accountable, including suspending them from office. If you don't have enforcement, this stuff isn't going to work. So that's really, really important. And I think if you don't do the state and local piece, then none of this stuff is going to work. And so the question is, do we want to answer the call of the voters? Do we want to actually fulfill this promise? And it's not just president that made it. Republicans have been running against open borders for years and years and years. This is really the last shot, I think. If we don't do it now to the fullest extent, then it's just not going to get done. So here's the moment to do it. And we got to have all hands on deck. But you have to have maximum participation in these programs, and they will work. It will absolutely work. This is not a question at this point for us about whether it can be done. We know it can be done. It's just a matter of will. You got to have the will to do it. And what the legislature did was provide a lot of window dressing. They provided a lot of money to house illegal aliens. I don't want to house them. I want to deport them. Why would we want to spend money on housing them? Let's get them out of here. A lot of money for the Commissioner of Agriculture to hand out money to law enforcement. I mean, first of all, I don't even know how long that would take. Not going to be effective at all. We've already got the infrastructure in place. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. We're already doing the job in state government, and that's very, very important. So we can do it, but you got to have all the ducks lined up in a row. And here's the thing. This is a pass-fail exercise. Either you're doing what needs to be done or you're not. And, you can sit there and talk about these things and say this and say that, but this is an objective reality. And it's not just because I'm saying it. Read it for yourself. Is what they're doing going to make the difference that we know we need? Absolutely not. It would hinder our ability. Most of the operations we're doing in state government would be shut down. It would be a total disaster for the state of Florida. On the other hand, if we actually got tough, we were strong on the policy, man, you would see a huge increase in enforcement. You would see the numbers go up in terms of the deportations. That would alleviate problems on law enforcement, on schools, on health care. People get into traffic accidents and they don't have insurance. And it's like, oh, you know what? And people say I think the view of the legislature is okay, well, if someone is a criminal, then we'll deport them. I want to deport them before they're victimizing people. I don't want to wait until they victimize somebody. So now's the moment to do it. What they did, last night is not going to pass muster. It is not what they told you they would do when they ran for office. It is not consistent with what all these Republicans ran on and all these Republicans promised the people that put them into office. And so we've got to do what the voters expect us to do, and we got to meet the moment. So I appreciate everyone being here. We're not going to quit on this. It's just too important to quit on. And so we're going to keep digging in until we actually get the job done. So thank you for doing that. Now, I want to pass it along, and we're going to hear from some of our other folks. So we'll start with Dave Kerner.